Welcome everyone, it's the Crypto Lark, and today I'm talking with Brad from Unstoppable Domains. This is a very interesting blockchain-based project which has been getting a lot of press recently. We're going to be breaking down what an unstoppable domain actually is. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thanks a bunch. Thanks for having me.
Now, the elevator pitch, what are you guys doing?
We are building domains on blockchains. So we are building what's called an alternate root. It is a domain extension that is not part of the traditional internet. And we are also building a app where you can go and buy domains and set them up.
Nice. Nice. So that's the blockchain brings in the unstoppable part, right?
Mhm.
Now, in practice, how's that actually going to work? So I go and make, the cryptolark.zil. And what's that actually mean? So, I mean, I can give people that, I can say, hey, the cryptolark.zil, and that's my website. I see you guys are linking this to cryptocurrency addresses as well, so I can make that a payment address. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the way to think about it is there's two main things that you're going to use your blockchain domain for. The first one is to replace your crypto addresses with human readable names. So you're going to have cryptolark.zil. You're going to add your Bitcoin address, your Ethereum address, your Litecoin address, all your cryptocurrency addresses all to this one domain. And now in the future, you just tell me that, cryptolark.zil. I go into a wallet, type that in, select which currency I want to pay you, and then pay. So you no longer need to tell me what your addresses are, and you no longer even need to tell me which crypto you want to accept because your domain is already preloaded with the ones that you accept. So
Nice.
that's use case number one.
That's what I just want to say about use case number one real quick. That's really cool because I can just give people out and just say I don't have to, send them my Bitcoin address, right? I just have to make sure that they get to the other part of it correct, right? That they actually get the crypto lark and actually send that along correctly that way. But assuming that, which is a very human understandable address, then they can send me Bitcoin or Ethereum or Litecoin or any other stuff, and it's handled automatically in the back end. So it's pretty cool. So number two.
Yeah. And number two is uncensorable websites. And so the way that this is going to work is because your domain is an asset on a blockchain that's sitting inside of your wallet, just like a cryptocurrency, it can't be taken down through a takedown order. So if GoDaddy or Google Domains got a takedown order, they would just take your domain away from you because it's sitting inside of a centralized system. Here, if Unstoppable Domains got a takedown order, we would say, sorry, you need to go get their private keys, probably on their phone. That's the best we can do. So it's a completely different security model. So that's one piece. The other place where websites get taken down is on content storage places. So like Amazon Web Services, which stores your website, your web content. If they got a takedown order, they would take down your website. So we're going to make it easy for you to set up your website on IPFS or another decentralized storage network. We're basically going to build you a little decentralized hosting tool. And you'll be able to spin up a really simple website. It's going to be like text only almost. Like if you try to put up a video, it like wouldn't even work. We're basically going back to like 1996 internet, but the difference is no one can take this website down but you.
Hmm. Well, and I can see there's probably, I mean, obviously we're in the early iterations of this idea. I can imagine there's going to be situations where you can say, okay, well, we're going to host the core of the website, on these file sharing services, but we could have, we still upload our videos to YouTube, and that could be, we just link those across like that, make it very easy so that, you're outsourcing your video hosting to someone else. And if YouTube shuts you down, there's different story, but then you still have the core of your content, which is hosted there. So in terms of that decentralized file storage, are you in conversations with anyone like, for example, Coin about actually getting a partnership moving together where you guys can have that kind of synergy?
We're actually just using IPFS in our prototype, and it's an open protocol. So we're using it. We have betas of websites, so that's what we're currently doing. We are very open to adding more storage networks. That'll be great for the ecosystem. So we would love to add more. It's just that we've started with our tooling on IPFS, but we're very open.
Very cool. And so my address is stored on my blockchain address, whichever this is going to be based on Silica, right? So I will have to have a Silica address in order to have my, cryptolark.zil address.
We will give you essentially a very simple wallet where you will store your Silica domain because it's an asset based on the Silica blockchain, but you will attach any cryptocurrency address to it. So you as the user aren't even really going to care. like this question of like which blockchain your domain asset lives on is kind of going to be like a developer consideration. If we were to give you a domain that lived on Silica, and then we were also give you a domain that lived on Ethereum or something, you probably wouldn't notice the difference.
So the wallet that I get is actually going to be kind of similar to a cryptocurrency wallet that I would normally get in terms of security and mnemonic phrases and stuff like this.
Yeah, it's a self-custody model, so very similar to like like a blockchain.com or probably whatever else you're most likely using on your phone. And so we also have a backup app, mobile app where you can store your keys. But it's very simple. It doesn't even have like send and receive regular cryptocurrency in the UI because it's not really the purpose. This is really just a tool for you to be able to store your domain very easily on day one. We also hope that a lot more wallets and a lot more players in the ecosystem will start enabling UI for storing your domains too. That's not something that we feel the need for you to, that's just a feature that we want the ecosystem to support.
Nice. Now, one of the most common questions I've kind of seen is, won't the other blockchains just do, the cryptolark.eos, the cryptolark.eth, the cryptolark.neo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we do have others exploring the sort of the name services, the domain services, and some of those, are looking at very, very cheap models for those. So, I mean, are you worried about all these other services offering this? Are you worried that, the .zil addresses won't stand out as uniquely?
Well, I think that there's one thing that we've done differently so far on the registry, and it's also on the registry side, and it's also just when I say registry, I mean .zil, just because of the way that we think about the world as a business, which is we are trying to make it so these work for any cryptocurrency that you would use. We are trying to make this a tool for the entire crypto community and hopefully beyond. So we just aren't very focused on which blockchain it's on. It's based on what tools we think are the best for this case. But that just doesn't seem like the thing that is the bigger problem. So our extensions work for any cryptocurrency. If, for example, I think that there was the system that was built for Ethereum, for example, .eth originally doesn't. It only works for Ethereum addresses. So this is kind of a big problem because let's say you love Ethereum. Do you only want to accept Ethereum? What if someone wants to pay you in Bitcoin? I've never met anybody that only wants to accept one currency and would refuse to accept any others. So that's not really that was kind of built for that community, not built for the user. The user wants to be able to accept Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin. And when we got into this, we were like, okay, well, we know we need Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin and maybe a couple of others. Very quickly, we realized we need dozens. So, and there's no way around that. So we're building that for that case. So that's the first thing. The next thing is that this is an ecosystem problem. So we're also building a consumer app, unstoppabledomains.com. That's a place where you can go to buy domains and a place where you can go to configure, add your cryptocurrency addresses to it. And that'll also be the place where you're going to be able to build your uncensorable websites. So we have this consumer relationship that we're building. We're driving users to our website. And then we also have a library for wallets to use to integrate blockchain domains. And it's free and open source. And we're also supporting all previous blockchain domain extensions that have users as well. So we want it to be one integration that all wallets can use. So we're taking a holistic approach. We think that it doesn't really matter if you just launch an extension on its own. You got to do all of these things. You got to make sure that you get the distribution. You got to have a place for people to buy them. You got to have the tools for people to use them and configure them. Then you got to go and build the tools for all the wallets and apps to get them. And then you got to convince everybody to do it. So it's so much more than just the extension itself. And so we're looking at it as sort of this partnership model and, coming at it, coming to wallets and coming to other players and saying like, how can we work together on this? Because we think this is going to be a really big industry.
I think it is going to be a big industry, and we're looking at the future of how we're actually going to have, website addresses and the idea of the unstoppable domain, right? That you do have this actual censorship resistance kind of built into it, and we are at the early stages, as you said, where you're going to have, 1990s style websites, and obviously that's not going to be the future of websites, right? That's the past websites, but building those initial iterations of how that's actually going to work, the information that can be posted there. I mean, we can automatically think of a lot of things. I mean, look at like WikiLeaks, for example, right? How many near sites do they have to have because they're under constant attack, right? They could have websites that are more resilient than that potentially, right? And so that censorship resistance of a website, I think, is of course really, really important when it comes down to it. So I think that in of itself gives a big edge, and everything else you mentioned too. But I'm really, really excited about censorship resistance overall. Now, the idea of getting the domains early, I think, is something that attracts a lot of people because we saw what happened in the 90s, into the 2000s, and still today, actually, where people go out and buy, Coca-Cola.zil or, Google.zil. And then at some point, Google wants that, and they're willing to pay a lot of money for that. So can you explore that idea a little bit?
Yeah, it's a good one. And I think that the first thing I would say to people is that this is a new paradigm. So when blockchain domain extensions roll out, they get adoption, it won't be exactly like what happened in the 90s. I can't predict for you all the different ways it'll be different, but I know that it'll be different. And the reason why is because these things work for payments right out the gate because it's crypto, and these things are uncensorable. So some of the use cases are going to have to be different because of that. So the thing I think about is like, who are going to be the traditional companies that are going to be more likely to adopt this? Well, it's probably going to be people that are already worried about censorship. It's probably also going to be crypto-oriented companies are probably also going to be earlier on. Will Coca-Cola or Google want their .zil in the near future? Hard to say. But how we approach trademark holders and this problem in general is very similar to the way that it works in the traditional system. There is something called a sunrise period where you announce to all trademark holders, here, I'm launching a new domain extension. If you're interested in claiming your domain, come to us with proof of your trademark, and we will sell it to you. And that's what we're doing right now. We are in a pre-order phase, and intentionally, we are alerting trademark holders, trying to get them to buy their domains. And if somebody bought Google.zil or whatever, and then Google comes to us with a trademark proof right now before we're live, we will refund and sell it to them. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't happen, once it goes, then it'll go to auction, which is the way it works also with a traditional domain system. And then once it's in your possession, because it's a blockchain domain, there's no third party that can force it to move. But a court could very well, like Google could very well still get mad at you for doing something with Google.zil and sue you. That aspect doesn't go away. But the difference is you can be anonymous and own it, A, and B, there is no forcing function. So you cannot, it's not as simple as GoDaddy just goes and does it. Mm-hmm. They would actually need to get you to do it or compel you to do it. So it's different in that way, but the law didn't change.
So right now, are you accepting cryptocurrencies for the services?
Yeah, so we're accepting, I think we're accepting Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum so far, trying to add a few more, and we also accept credit card.
Nice. So obviously, if you're paying with credit card, it's a little trickier in terms of if Google wants to find out who you are with that pseudonymous address you have. But if you're paying with Bitcoin or something, well, then it becomes actually like you can anonymously own Google.zil as the example here. So that's pretty cool. Now this is a subscription based service, so that's one of the things I've seen people commenting quite a bit about. Like, it's not so unstoppable, you have to keep renewing it. Well, it's like every other domain service, you have to renew it every I think it's a year or 2 years, is it?
Yeah, and it actually is still, there is no way for us to interfere with the mechanism. It actually is an on-chain subscription. So long as you pay it, we cannot interfere with you paying it or you not paying it.
So you can't say to someone, well, we're not going to renew it because, Google's sitting here offering us $1 million to not renew your contract.
You're interacting directly with the smart contract, and we cannot interfere with that. However, there is still the risk is basically that you would forget or that you wouldn't, and then that would be the challenge. Not that unstoppable domains can mess with it. So after 2 years, it's $5 per year.
Now, obviously, something that gets brought up a lot in these kind of conversations is the people will do bad things, right? We're going to have people putting all kinds of things in terms of blockchain based websites, right, that you may not want to have. So is there any sort of mechanism in place for, I don't know, kittyporn.zil or, terrorismrus.zil? Like, any comments on that?
Yeah, and I think that the first thing that we think about, and the first thing to keep in mind is that bad things do happen with open source systems, and we don't want bad things to happen. But we do believe as a company that the more important thing, the bigger problem in the world is freedom, and freedom on the internet, and freedom of speech, and freedom to transact, and that is a much bigger problem. So fixing that is far greater than the problems that are created, and that, I would say, is the most important thing. That being said, we don't want people to be doing illegal things with their domains, and we don't want to facilitate it. And there's a lot of other apps and companies that don't either. And what's going to wind up happening is we will support essentially lists at the second layer of bad addresses. So you will be able to have gradations of what you see. Basically, what's going to wind up happening is at the blockchain level itself, nothing is censored, but apps will choose to censor content, and you will choose your apps. So you choose your browser chooses your internet.
Mm-hmm.
And this gives you your fundamental level of freedom, because there will always be some crazy raw open source, there will always be somebody on the extreme. So the tools will always exist for those that need it most, but the rest of us won't need to face kittyporn.zil and terrorismrus.zil, which would be a dramatically worse internet experience than we currently have. Mm-hmm. So if we have to shove all of that, if we have to amplify that, we've failed. And I actually think it's going to be quite easy in this way, because we're now going to have essentially an easier sharing process across apps. Hey, this is a bad address. Hey, this is an address that looks like it might be a spam or throw a flag because it looks very similar. So we're not even telling the user you can't see this one. We're just saying, hey, watch out. This one looks a little suspicious. You might want to look into that. You might want to go do your own lookup on the blockchain before you transact with this person. Who knows what's going on? Something's up. There's all of these gradations of things that we can do, and that's kind of how it should work.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, blockchain is transparent. So if you're sending transactions to either of these addresses, right? Well, that's recorded on the blockchain, so there's no anonymity behind that. So it's actually potentially even a mitigating factor in some ways in terms of payments and things like this. But yeah, I definitely agree with you that it's not about trying to necessarily stamp out the extreme cases. It's about trying to give the most freedom to everybody, and understanding that, well, there will be people that do bad things. And you know what? At no point in history have we been able to stop people from doing bad things. They just continue to do them. And there will always be that tiny faction in society, which is unfortunate, but that's, the reality. And the question is not taking away everyone's freedom to try and stop a couple of people from doing something, but to give as much freedom to everyone. And hopefully, the good intentions win out, which of course they almost always do, which is a good thing. Now, you guys have been a grantee of the Silica Foundation, but also of the Ethereum Foundation. So what does this actually mean, being so connected with them, and why did you choose to go with Silica over Ethereum, especially if you guys have some kind of cooperation with the Ethereum Foundation as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, we've always taken this approach. So I think initially the way that we thought it was going to go is that blockchains were going to kind of rival each other in this, with their extensions. That was kind of how it started with that ETH. EOS did something similar. I think Neo did one as well. So like this is sort of the early pattern that we saw. And what we realized is that what the user really wants a tool that allows them to pay in any cryptocurrency and just wants it to work. So our CTO reviewed a number of smart contract platforms and identified who would we build on. What was the list of blockchains we would build on, that we were excited to build on, and our list was Silica and Ethereum so far. So it's not that those are the only ones necessarily, but that those were the two that were technically up to the challenge.
Very, very cool. Now, so in terms of anyone who's interested in actually getting involved in the service, I mean, you can go and actually, book in those names today. So if you want to go and get, well, actually, I've already got Crypto Lark, so you can't get that one. But let's say you want to get somebody else. I know a lot of the other crypto YouTubers. Vaughn on Tech, I think, has probably already got his and stuff like that. But maybe you go and get datadash.zil, for example, or something like that, and so you can actually go out there and get this, or you can actually just get your own name too. You can get johnqsmith.zil, and get in there before the other John Q Smith gets in there and gets it. So you can actually go and get these addresses now. Now, in terms of the service actually being sort of live, I mean. It's going now, right? In terms of actually having this functionality where I can give somebody johnqsmith.zil and receive Bitcoin now, or is that service coming a little bit later in the year?
It will be live. Everything will be live in June. So the contracts will go live on the blockchain in June, and initial uses like initial wallets also then.
Very, very cool. So anybody who wants some more information, there's a link down below. You guys can go over to Unstoppable Domains and check it out. It's definitely a cool idea, and I think this is going to be an important part of our future blockchain ecosystem. So Brad, thanks so much for coming on the channel and telling everyone a little bit about what you guys are doing.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.